All right, welcome back to Beyond the Bell. I had the privilege today to talk to Dave Stewart from DS Home Services. We've known Dave for 16 years when he had his company with a few employees and how he's grown over the years. Always impressed with his drive, his ambition to do what he does, especially coming from the trades, and have these success stories of business people in the trades and what they do and all the opportunities that are out there. So it was a great discussion. We get into a few things, a couple of questions that I had about generators and heat pumps and what he's doing with his services in his business. And I didn't mention it during the podcast, but you can reach Dave online. Just look up DS Home Services and you can reach out to Dave if you have any questions or any services that you need. So hope you enjoy the podcast. All right, and we're on with Dave Stewart with DS Home Services. Dave, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, Mike, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and home services is different because I can't, right away I'm thinking Dave Stewart with DS Electric. So I noticed the home services that has been a big change for you, right, recently?
Yeah, we actually just had to launch the first of this month. It's been 16 years I've been DS Electric, so I'm catching myself every day saying DS Electric, or I've kind of trained the staff to just say answer the phones as DS right now, kind of to make it anybody who hasn't seen it online or whatever, so it's not a shock to them or think they're calling the wrong spot. But just as the first of this month, we did the full transition, logo change, new branding, and just all in DS Home Services.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't know the logo too. So it's not your typical. I mean, obviously the one logo you had with like the extension cord wrapping around identifies electric. So it's just totally different now.
Yeah, it's actually it's pretty funny. It's a shield and two swords in the back of the shield. And I was working with an advisor, kind of, we're going around to different ideas, and that was nothing in my, we came down to, we were working with a whole bunch of different logo companies. There's a company out there where you can just request. It's called Logo Tournament. Mm-hmm. And people kind of compete on designing your logo. You ask a couple questions, and I just said military background. I told them I've been doing electrical work, and the color schemes I like, and where we're going, what we're doing, and a lot of stuff came back with houses and all stuff that I really loved. It came down to 5 that I was like really super excited about. One of them in particular, and I was pretty well set on it. And then the person who's advising me said, "Now, Dave, before you open this, before you look at it, I'm a little, there's some trepidation here. It's totally different, but what do you think about this?" And she put it on the screen. I was like, wow, it kind of blew me away, because going back to when I started DS Electric, obviously Dave Stewart, DS, I wasn't a marketing genius at the time, and not that I am now, but it was between DS Electric and Steward with a D Electric. And the idea being steward, electrical steward. I got a Irish Scottish background, and we would just be serving all your electrical needs. And when it came back out with the sword, with the 2 swords and a shield, it was just like, wow, that really spoke to me, and I loved it right off the bat.
That's cool. So the swords more or less from the Marines, the military kind of thing, and the shield, of course.
No, the basic idea behind it was just that we're protecting your home, and I mean, so like you said, I have a Marine background, a military background, and what better way to protect your home than with the shield and swords?
No, absolutely. That's cool. Cause like I said, from talking to Andy, who does marketing with us, and getting into discussions about branding, a lot of times, and I was guilty of it years ago when I had my own business, you go to instantly, especially what catches your eye and what you think just looks cool or looks like it would sum up what you do for the business. I mean, for mine, it was construction. So you take, a saw blade, you want to throw things out there that catch people's eye. but there is more to it, and it's great to get that guidance because you're having that brand, and it's another shift. It's coming from your business, an established, reputable business. You're not just out of the gate and you have the clientele and stuff, and then switching over the logo and the name. So when you do that and having that clientele, that'll all shift through the website and everything else with it, right? Pretty much.
Oh, yeah, a total rebrand, all new vehicle wraps. So, we have 7 high top vans right now, and a couple other vehicles. The high top vans are really that's what's out there in people's houses every day, and we're gonna have them all new, rewrapped, totally whole new, just everything new. We launched a new website actually just the beginning of this week that went live. So it's been a big, exhausting kind of changeover.
Oh, I bet. And
I
then
don't know if
how many employees
you
now?
see.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I see it. Wow,
It's
that's awesome,
backwards,
man.
but I didn't realize
Yeah.
that. So, yeah.
No, that's
So
awesome.
with office staff, we're at like 20, 23 or 24 right now.
Wow. Wow.
So big
Holy
changes.
cow. Yeah, from man, and it hasn't been too long since I've talked to you. So it was because you were always acquiring good people through the past, what'd you say, 16 years with DS?
Yep, 16 years.
But
Yep.
then in the past, what, couple of years, it's just grown pretty quick, right?
Yeah, yeah. The interesting part about that is, I was at a point where I was comfortable. I mean, not that I'm rich or was rich certainly, but I mean, I coming from growing up in a trailer park, I had more than I ever thought I would. I enjoyed what I was doing. I wasn't in the field all the time. I was in the field sometimes. Um, and I wasn't growing anymore for me. But a good friend, I lost a kid that worked for me, and he was like a little brother to me. I thought he'd be with me forever. He went to the military,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I like to think maybe in following my footsteps. But when he came back, he had to go overseas. And when he came back, he told me, like, Dave, I found another job. And I was just blown away. I just didn't know what was happening. But then and I wasn't angry, but I was disappointed. But what I found out was he had nowhere to grow. There was nowhere for him to go. Like I was good. I had somebody else that was helping me in the office. We had a office manager, and then there was like 3 or 4 vans running. The most he would ever get at DS Electric at the time was running a van, and that wasn't where he wanted to be. That wasn't enough. So Ryan Parsons, Brothers Just Two Gutters, he told me a few years ago. He said, "David, at a point, you're not growing for you. You're growing for your employees," and that
Yeah.
really stuck with me. And I just decided I got to grow if I'm going to keep quality, good people.
Yeah, and that in itself is a process because you can, um, you have that structure that you started out. Because I remember 16 years ago, I still can't believe it's been 16 years because I remember it was you, 2 other guys. You were still coming out here and there in the field, working in the field, and you always had that drive of knowing. I think, you always wanted to grow, make it better for whether it's 2 guys or 23. You were always driven to just, hey, we're getting another van, we're getting these tools, just to keep it going. And I know it's got to be a challenge to have the employees want to grow, want to have more for them to grow, but you just have to have that structure that takes time over the years in order for it to be good growth, right? Because you don't want the growth that's too fast, then it falls apart.
Sure. Yeah. And we had our fair share of, I've had my fair share of bad hires, especially during COVID. A couple of my guys that they were good guys or quality guys that were with me. 2 of them in particular, Brad and Mikey, they had kids with compromised immune systems, and they just, we didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on, and they didn't feel comfortable. We were an essential service, so we did stay open, but we went down the 1-man crews. So I lost a lot of my good guys. I lost a couple of longtime employees right before that. So I
Mm-hmm.
took on a couple of people, and I was kind of taking who I could get, unfortunately, at the time. And they were some of the worst. I mean, I look back now and I mean, gosh, I would have been better just doing what I could on my own, I think. But, you do what you can when you can.
Yeah, and that obviously was a time that was so unique for so many reasons. We can go on and on about everything and anything. And then when it came to business, we thought we were gonna the brakes were just gonna stop, especially being in people's houses, the concerns that were going on, the essentials, who was essential, can we work? And then it was like the perfect storm because everyone was home. Everybody either needed work done because they were using so much of whether it's appliances, things around their house, things were either breaking or needed service. They wanted things changed. So for us doing remodeling, they were working from home offices, redoing the basements, and it just blew up to where we couldn't keep up. And it was the same thing for us to where there was people available. We were, strategic about what we could do with hiring because we didn't know what was going to happen. But in our case, we were able to find some employees that are still with us now that were in the restaurant business. And as we know, they suffered a lot and businesses went under. Employees, what were they going to do? Where were they going to go? So in a few cases for us, it worked out pretty good. And that was just a time, as you know, to where certain parts of the business just blew up, and then you're just bobbing and weaving through such a unpredictable time that just changed businesses in so many ways since then.
Yeah, I mean, forever changed. I mean, so many people realized that they needed a home that could be their refuge. And, for me, my generator business blew up. And thankfully, a lot of people just stopped ordering because who knew? I took a different approach. I started just ordering generators. I ordered generators I didn't need. At the time, we were allowed to just order and cancel if we didn't need it. That kind of backfired on Generac. But that's what they recommended us doing, but not many of us did. So when the supply chain kind of came back, I had generators and nobody else did. We did 306 generators last year when a typical year before then, I mean, a good year for us was 50, I mean, I think our best year before last year was maybe 70 generators, and we did 306 last year. We ended up becoming a premier dealer with Generac. There's only 260 some odd of them in the country, or, in the Northeast, out of 25,000 Generac dealers. So, I mean, I was very fortunate to, plan ahead like that and actually get them in line and be able to coordinate them. But it could have went bad. I could have just, who knows, they could have shipped out and then they could have shut everything down. I could have been sitting on a couple $100,000 worth of inventory, So like you said, bobbing and weaving, taking risks. Thankfully it worked out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so with the generators, that push, I mean, what do you think it was a combination of things I mean, we saw a lot of people moving into the area, out of the city. They wanted, obviously it was that concern because they felt boxed in, they felt trapped. They wanted, whether it was moving completely or a second home. So do you see that was, and of course it was concern in general that people had for just being prepared, or you think it was a combination of those and a few other things?
For the generators, it was a perfect storm for them. I mean, like you said, in Hudson Valley here, we had an influx of people coming up from the city, and a lot of those people, I mean, they weren't used to being without power, and if they were without power, it was kind of cute until I realized that that meant not being able to flush the toilet and wash your hands and stuff like that. So that changed things really quick. The homeschooling, I mean, you can't do any homeschooling if you don't have power. If you got kids running around, they need to be doing something. But I think the biggest and longest lasting thing was the idea that people can work from home. I mean, I know you guys are doing a lot of home offices now. We're wiring a lot of stuff like that, and people are, I have a lot of companies or customers that say, "Oh yeah, my company's going to pay for it. They can't have me without power, so they're paying for a generator to go in. And you combine that with we had a lot of parents buying it for the kids because they were worried about them being, or their grandkids being, without power. And on the other side of it, we had older kids that were buying it for their elderly parents. Just God forbid power went out and they weren't able to get to them. So there was just a huge spike, huge demand in generators just across the board.
Well, with that leads me to a question that I had for you, and I'm curious myself. So you have generators, and what you just explained, the concern with generators. So with this ban on gas coming into new homes for New York, and just the little reading I was doing about it, and of course it's something that comes up at work, and we're just discussing it, the effect it can have. And I know it's new construction from what I understand, and 7 stories or less right now, that they're going to ban the gas stoves and any kind of boilers that are going to be gas, from what I understand. So that would require it to be electric heat. And I'm just thinking of the capacity or the load, or your thoughts on that with the electric that some of these houses require, the size of these houses now, that may change the size that they end up constructing, maybe, because the amount of electricity that's going to be needed, the amps you're going to need, the 200 amps at the house that you would typically need. But if they're all going to be electric heat, it's just a huge game changer. And from what I understand with generators, I don't think it applies to generators. I think you can still have gas generators because it's part of the emergency, if I understand. But again, it's just learning about it, trying to understand the effects that it'll have on it. But I was just interested in your take, as that's going to be coming into effect next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to wrap my head around what you just said. I mean, there's just so many different, as you're saying, and I'm like,
Yeah.
The first thing is the whole gas thing. That is, there is the war on fossil fuels, whether you believe in it or not. It's there, and people are, you're not allowed to have it. In New York City, you're not allowed to build a building that has natural gas in it now. The effects of it, throughout everything, is the infrastructure just can't support it. We're shutting down the nuclear sites. The push for solar is there, which I believe in. I believe in solar. I believe in the heat pumps. I think the heat pump technology I am on board with. I believe in it 100%. And when I started taking classes through Mitsubishi, as we started getting more into the home services, it's a great technology, and we have to get there. But when you add that onto the electric vehicles, electric cars, that's the biggest thing. The draw on them is just, there's a continuous load. The Tesla ones, we're certified Tesla dealers. We do a lot of them. We probably do at least one of them a week. Some houses, they want 2 of them in there, and Tesla's smart. You can wire them so that they're pulsating between, and it's not. But if you think about 2 Tesla chargers, 60 amps, 120 amp full load capacity, it's degraded and all like that. But that's a huge draw. And when is that? That's at 5:30 or 5 o'clock when people are getting home from work, if they are working away. And all of a sudden everybody on the street comes home and plugs in. That transformer wasn't planned for that. When they were designing, I always use the Ridgeline Drive in Poughkeepsie as my example. We were in a meeting with Central Hudson. This is going back probably 6-7 years. And we were talking about EVs and all like that. And I said, do you want us to put in a data form when we put one of these EVs in? And the engineers were there, and they said, it's not really necessary. It's not a big deal. I said, okay, well, it just so happened that week we put in like 4 Tesla chargers on Ridgeline Drive. I was like, I have 4 Tesla chargers on Ridgeline Drive this week. Like, who else in here has put them in the last 30 days? And like almost everybody's hand went up. Like, there's 40 or 50 Tesla chargers. Did you plan on that 60 amps to hit this? And the engineer was like, oh, maybe we should put in a data form. But you take that and you multiply it by the whole infrastructure. Now they're building these monster power lines, up the Hudson Valley. We don't have the capacity right now. We got to figure something out. And the from my understanding, what their goal is, their fix is what they call these microgrids. So a microgrid is something like, let's we're talking about Ridgeline Drive. They want that to be its own self-contained thing. So if they determine that Ridgeline Drive doesn't have the capacity going into it, they're pushing people to get solar, and the generators, they all have this technology in them now where Central Hudson will pay you to put a monitor on your generator, and they'll actually turn your generator off and kick you off of utility power to take that peak off of the load. So they want all these communities to have the ability to kind of produce their own power, put in the batteries. So, all of a sudden, it gets to be 5 o'clock and everybody's AC is on because it's 100 degrees out, and they got the car chargers on and they're cooking because now we can't have gas stoves. So now they start shutting people down, which, if somebody's buying into it, that's great. If somebody has to do it, I don't think that's great. But then they're also, one of the incentives is to give you a thermostat that they'll control. So you can only, you can't put it up to, you can't bring it down to 68 degrees. Maybe you're capped out at, 70 degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that should be the solution. I think everybody should do their part. But, how do they know what I got going on in my house? Maybe I got an elderly, mom that needs to have it a little bit cooler in there. So it's scary stuff.
So is that all in a new development that's going on?
So that's a nationwide program. You can go on right on Central Hudson's website, and if you're in a zone that they have high demands, you could sign up. And nothing's mandatory, but you could sign up for the generators. I believe they give you $500 a year and a stipend for gas. For the the smart thermostats, they give you something. I think there's some timer things on, like, maybe EV charge. I'm not sure exactly what all of them are, but it's right on Central Hudson's website, and all the utility companies have them, and you can sign up on it, and they cut you a check every year to do it. It's a good program. If it's something you buy into, we had a couple of customers, that inquired about it. So I really looked into it, and, I think we might have a link on our website, dshomeservices.com. That'll take you to the Central Hudson page that has that.
So if you sign up for the program and they're, cutting a check for whatever part of the program you sign up for, but they can have control, like you said, over the thermostat or the generator based on whatever part of the program you're signed up for?
Yep. So if there's peak loads in that area at that time, they'll say, hey, Ridgeline Drive, they're calling for this much power. We have this much available. Let's shut off, our customers that bought in, and they'll shut them down. That'll bring the peak down. Let everybody else's car chargers get charged, or ACs go on, or whatever it is, and then they'll put them back on. It's kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can give up control like that,
Yeah, I think you and I think a lot alike on those types of things.
Yeah, but at the same time, I know that's why I was curious about it, because it's concerning with any kind of regulation that is major like that. You can argue the pros and cons, of course, as far as trying to save. I just think it's an extreme step that's changing things that you're not thinking ahead of what it's going to affect. I mean, right away is the cost. So if you do have the electric cars, or is everyone considering the cost of a company coming in to get them set up so that they can charge these cars, or what has to be done based on their home, if it can even handle that based on how it's set up. So now it could be changing everything, just the amps of the house, to be able to be compatible with these things that are going on. Just everything that adds to it is just not thought on the front end. Again, typically, as usual, it's going to be the aftermath of what happens, the ripple effect, the residual effect of people just not thinking ahead. There's a law that's put through, and then we'll see what the challenges are after, kind of thing.
And I believe that some of that's true, but also I think that they're putting these regulations in place, and just knowing that there has to be somebody out there that's going to come up with the ideas, and the ones that come up with the best ideas will make the most money on it. So it's just kind of funny that it's like these government regulations that push industries to be more innovative. And I think in this case, that's kind of what they're doing. They're saying, oh, everybody off the grid, everybody, and we have to figure something out, or the system's going to start shut down. So they're banking on somebody figuring something out.
Yeah, under the pressure of it needing to be done. And I know that some will be able to figure it out, whether it's because they have the funds to do it, um, or their house is set up to do it. I mean, whether it's solar to be able to make up some of it, it's pretty complex when you think about it, because you want to save on the electricity, and especially now you're just thinking of different ways to try to do that. Now, is that, I know we talked about it briefly a few months ago. Is solar something that's on your radar to get into as well as part of the services you'll provide?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing started, it all started with generators. I mean, we were doing a lot of generators that were necessary, and people wanted them, so we started doing them. We were good at them. I was a generator mechanic in the Marine Corps. That's something I've been a Generac dealer for 15 years or so. So we started doing them, and then gas started becoming a problem. I couldn't find anybody to do natural gas, and when I did find somebody to do natural gas, it was like $4,000 to run 15 feet of pipe. I mean, it was just astronomical. People were paying it, and they were happy paying and glad to pay it. But I said, I have to do what's right for my customer. So the first thing we brought in was the gas. So I actually got my gas license. I'm a city of Kingston a gas license. I brought in another guy, outfitted a van so that we could do gas. Invested in the pro press. Did all that. So that was like step one. It was just kind of, hey, we need. It was a need, so we did it. Just like the government's trying to do on the other stuff. We saw that there was a need, so we filled it. And then the next thing was the heat pumps. And I mean, cards on the table, to be honest, I just saw how much incentives and how much money was out there that they were giving for these heat pumps. So it didn't start out with, this, oh, I think it's the right thing. It started out with, there's a lot of money in it. Let me look into it. Mm-hmm. As I learned about it, I do believe in the heat pumps. I mean, that's how I'm cool in my office right now. I have them in my home. We just did our fourth, I think, whole house. So we took it off a fossil fuel and brought it over to heat pumps. So that was it. But holistically, the idea is that what we're going to do is generators, because we're not quite there yet with solar to get you kind of off grid. Generators, I think, are important. I think everybody has to have some form of backup, whether it's just a gasoline generator to keep your refrigerator going, maybe the furnace going. The solar, I think the solar is something, and I'm hoping by this year we'll get at least a solar in. My goal for my new build, I just bought a 10,000 square foot building, and my goal for that is to have solar and batteries and get as off grid as possible and just be as self-sufficient and, not have to deal with fluctuating pricing of electric, because that's where it's going. I mean, they're pushing us all to get on electric, and then the prices are just going to get outrageous, because where's the electric come from? It's a very small percentage of the electric from the grid that's being produced by solar or wind or, hydro. It's all coming from fossil fuels. So it's just going to drive the price of everything up. So the idea is with the home services that we'll be able to keep all the mechanicals under one thing and have somebody that understands them. I was dealing with companies that, they were putting these heat pumps in, and, they're asking me to put in a whole house of worth of heat pumps on a house that has 100 amp electrical service that's already maxed out. And then they don't tell the customer, like, oh, yeah, by the way, you're going to need to go to 200 amps. If you're going to get a car charger or two, you probably need to go to 400 amps. So it just became important for us to be able to provide the complete package, in one system, under one company to our employee, our customers.
Yeah, with the heat pumps, I mean, those are the mini splits, right? They do AC and heat.
Yep. Yeah, they do whole house heat pumps as well, like to replace a air compressor outside for AC. But the most efficient ones are the mini splits. Yeah.
And then there's the incentive to take the any gas boiler or furnace out to completely abandon that and then go completely to the heat pumps and the mini splits as a substitute, right?
Yeah, so it's they've come up with a tiered system now. It used to be if you pull if you pull your natural gas system out, you get 100% of the incentives. If you don't pull it out and you just have and you keep that as a backup, you only get 50% of it. They came up with something in the middle now, which we just did one. You can do smart integration in it, so you can keep your fossil fuel, but we put the heat pumps in and you put a controller in that all the heat pumps talk to one another. And if the heat pumps aren't keeping up, so if you set it for 72 and over a certain amount of time, it takes longer than it's set to get to 72, then it'll turn on your fossil fuel, warm it up, and then it'll shut off. So it's a backup to the other ones, true backup. You can't put that on over the heat pumps.
Oh, gotcha. So it's a certain percentage, and then I remember talking about it because we put a one of them in the splits in, and if I remember right, you can meet the percentage at a certain time. It may not be right away, but you can more or less gradually meet the percentage to get the incentive for maybe the next time. So if you do a small percentage, which I did, and it didn't meet any incentives which have changed in the past year or two since we've done it. But then I go and then I get full percentage, let's say, of our household done and completely on heat pumps and very little on fossil fuel. Then we can still qualify for something, from what I understood.
Yeah, so you have to meet between if you're gonna if you to qualify for the whole incentive, you have to have between 100 and 120% of your heat load of your house. So you have to do a manual J in your house, which you take into account your insulation level, how big it is, color of your roof, everything. It's pretty in depth kind of study. You figure out what the heating BTUs you need for your house are, then you size the heat pumps for that, and so that's all sized for the heating load. And the old way of thinking was just put more heat pumps in and bigger heat pumps and just more fast, just warm it up faster, not a big deal. The humidity was kind of a little bit of an issue, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But it was always just on or off, so it didn't really make that big of a difference for the cost of running it. Now with these variable speed heat pumps, I mean, it's just these things are just running. I mean, I got this one on now right now. If I went outside, it might just be spinning just very, very small. And because if it was up too high, it would cycle on and off 12 times a day, maybe. Um,
Mm.
or if it was too big, it would cycle on and off 12 times an hour, maybe. If it's sized appropriately, that thing only cycles on and off, 12 times a day, maybe like probably 5 times a day. It's pretty much running all day, but it's only running very, very, very small, slightly. And it's that startup. It's that locked rotor amp. That's where you're really using your power. So if it's oversized, it's cycling on and off a lot. And that's where you get the high electricity bills. That's why it can't be more than 120% of the heating load.
Gotcha. And then just like anything now, just wanting things more efficient. So it is, if your hand is being forced by, laws and things implemented that you can and can't do, it can be frustrating. But at the same time, like you said, you take advantage of the business it creates in some ways because you're making a shift. You want to help people with their setup in their house to be able to accommodate the best way to save energy because we need to, because it's just that cost that we need. So between the generators, the heat pumps, and the electrical service that you're still doing, I mean, you're going to keep growing. And if you end up getting into the solar, so you're covering Dutchess, Ulster, and Orange,
Yeah, in Columbia.
and Columbia.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So that alone, between the work that you're, or your service that you're providing and the area that you're covering, I mean, the room for growth, I mean, you could just keep going.
Yeah, and we're really, we invested a lot in our systems and our, the building and a lot in that, but our the software we're using, it makes without the new software we have, it wouldn't be possible for us to scale in any kind of way. You would just, it used to be like somebody get busy today, hire all these people, and they'd be out of business next year because there's nobody managing it. There's no consistency. There's no regulations. You can't keep track of hours. You can't keep track of material.
Mm.
This new software I have, like for the heat pumps, let's say, I built out, what I'm expected to use on every heat pump. That talks to my supplier, and not even the supplier just for the big units, but I have another supplier that we have the SKUs for, our Romex wire or our, screws, everything's just built in there with the material. So I can go in at any time, pull the cost of all the material from my supply house, and that'll automatically update all my pricing throughout what they call a price book. So that heat pump, today it could cost, $5,227, and tomorrow it could cost $5,224. It could vary just that much and I had to do that because a year ago, 2 years ago, the cost of things just got out of control. The fluctuation in PVC conduit, we're paying 10 times for PVC conduit than we did 5 years ago. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it helps you on to be aware of those things, because just like with us and anyone else, with the price of material going up, or for us with remodeling and cabinets and just everything, and of course it's everywhere, even in our personal lives. But to be able to track that for a business, and we don't have something as far as the material ends, on the material side, but it's more on the production side with our jobs running. Because and I know think you've had different programs that you've used. There's different ones out there. We use Builder Trend, there's Jobber, there's a few other ones, just to stay organized, take advantage of technology to be able to track it. Because this way you could have so many things going on, like years ago, to where you couldn't stay on top of it. But now, whether it's from your phone, from the office, you can just go on, see what job's going on, see the cost of the job, and just be able to be more efficient and productive. And it just helps with scaling. You put good people in good positions, and I know you've had some guys that have been with you for a long time, Ron and Brad, and I see a lot of new faces out there. But that's the whole formula, right? And I know you've been working on it, like we said, since I've known you, for 16 years, just going out there, always trying to get better at what you're doing, to keep the company growing. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's I appreciate that. I appreciate that you saying that. I model. I got Business of the Year a few years ago at the Hyde Park Chamber, and really the only person that I asked was Brian from DBS, because I really just looked up to him, and just the guidance and seeing how he did things. It kind of just gave me like a road to success, and just being a part of things, just listening, 2 ears, one mouth, and just keep listening on it. And that 5 years ago or whatever it was, when I decided that I had to grow, I started reading a lot of books. I got in a book club, things like that. And I read that book from Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And I decided my why was to start a company that I and my employees would be proud to work for and go to work every day. And we came up with my mantra. So my mantra is, you can't see it here, but it's on all the walls. It's better than we found it. And we just want to leave everything we find better than we found it. Whether it's you go into somebody's house, if there's a mess, clean it up. If, the package is out on a stoop, bring them in for the customer. If you're walking through a parking lot, pick something up. If somebody's having a bad day, just talk to them. I bring that into my personal life. I just try to, everything in my life, I just try to, I don't have to make it perfect, but if I can just make it better than I found it, I think I'm doing a good job.
Yeah, I'd say so. And you've had that drive since I've known you, since I met you. And would you contribute that to your service in the Marines? And thanks again for your service. And I know, we've talked for many years, and I know the background. But would you say that's where it started? Just having that drive to, is it that could be where it started? But what keeps you driven and keeps you going? For as long as I've known you, you've been an inspiration to me to where you're always driven, always going with your business, with your personal life. So do you contribute to that, or there's just other things along the way?
Well, I think the Marine Corps certainly helped me and straightened me out. It started before. I mean, in high school, my senior year in high school, I had three jobs. I mean, I was just always working. I attribute that to my mom. I mean, my mom, single mom. She did the best. Did me and my sister, my brother very well. She gave us everything we needed. When I was 16, I said, "Hey, Ma, I'm 16 now. I want to get a job. I need to get a car." And she said, "That's great. You can get whatever car you want. Just get a job and buy whatever car you want." And that was always it. She gave me that drive to work. And like I said, growing up, not having a lot, having what we needed, never went hungry, but not having a lot. We grew up in a trailer park till I was 12. I thought we were rich when we bought the house, up in Saugerties. When I was 12 or 13, and then going back and I was fixing it up for my mom, back 10 years ago. And as I'm going through it, I'm like, oh my God, how did we live in this house? But I thought I was rich, I mean, so just knowing that nothing was ever given to my mom, certainly nothing was ever given to me, and you just have to work for it, and just listening and just following the right path and just doing what was told. The Marine, and I was in high school. Like I said, I worked a lot. I did a lot of good, but I was also a knucklehead. I got in trouble, nothing bad, but, I got into my fair share of trouble. I gave my mom a hard time, my little sister, an ulcer, but, the Marine Corps really straightened me out. That's where it said, all that other stuff doesn't matter. Don't pay attention. They taught me grit. They taught me that anything that anybody else can do, I can do. I mean, there's, your body can do so much more. You can open your mind up. My daughter is so much like me. I have a son and a daughter and a stepson, but my daughter she just has this technical, she can figure things out. She's the first one, like, hey, we got to clean out the chicken coop, and she's there. She's ready to do it. Hey, we got to, whatever it is. She just gets in there, rolls up her sleeves, and that grit. I attribute the grit that I have to the Marine Corps and just the structure. So certainly that.
So with your daughter, is there a soft side on the Marine where you're caving a little bit?
100% on the soft one. I am 100% the soft one. my son the other day said, "Oh, Dad, I the Transformer poster ripped on the wall." He was knucklehead. He ripped it. I was like, "Oh, let's order one right now." And Mary, my partner, she's like, "You can't order. No, he broke that. He's not getting another one." I'm like, "It's a poster. He wants a poster. I'm going to get him a poster. Whatever he wants." And my daughter, don't tell her. She'll listen to this one day, but she could do whatever she wanted if Mary wasn't around.
No, I hear you, and that's the challenge. And I know we've talked about it before. Now that we have kids, same on my end, a daughter and a son, and Heather would tell you that I'm a softie with my daughter. But we have our moments where you bring the hammer down because it's for their benefit that you got to do it because they got to have that grit to come out and be independent, to have that drive, but at the same time, it's just that balance, which is a challenge. And you want them. For me, Shayna being in high school, she's got 2 years left, thinking about whether it's college or getting into work, what she's going to be doing. Now it's really planning, and you say, well, this is the time where it could be the fruits of our labor that we put in all those years, or it could come back and bite you if you were too soft. But it's just that balance, and I know you feel the same way. Just to get them on a good path, you don't want to fall into that trap of saying, "Hey, you're going to have it easier than I did," because that could be dangerous. You want to keep those obstacles out there. I just get in that habit, like, oh, I'll take care of that. I'll make that road a little easier for you, but you can't because it'll just it's not going to prepare them the best way possible.
Well, whatever you did, your kids are great. So I'll follow that a little bit. I do find myself, I we have the conversation, we talk about it, because we can provide more for my, I mean, I could just, when I was a kid, there was no option of, hey, the poster ripped, just get on Amazon and order another one, or go to,
Right.
here's $10, go buy another one. I mean, it was like, no, you appreciate everything you have. So that side of the stuff I'm soft on. I'll let my kids struggle. I will say I do that. If my son is having trouble lifting something, he tries to, oh, can you help me? I said, oh, go ahead and do it. You'll feel better about it if you do it yourself. And I do try my best to do that, and it takes more time, as you know, and sometimes
Hmm.
it hurts a little bit when they fall down. But that type of stuff, I do think I'm pretty good with.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, again, on your end, great kids, great family. Everyone's doing what they can, and the big thing is that I'm seeing just preparing them for the future for a career. And your name came up again today, to where we were talking about careers and the training that you were putting into place. And you and I would go down to BOCES, the CTI, Career Technical Institute, and there's a really good demand lately in the past few years growing, because even the high schools trying to get a spot to get into the technical school, the vocational school, to do. They're growing a wide range of things. My daughter's going in for editing, production, and film. And what I didn't realize is there's a waiting list for to get in, for whether it's nursing.
Yeah.
I know they do still do cosmetology, construction, automotive, but the electrical, uh, I know getting in there, there's been a waiting list, which is good to hear. And I'm pretty sure you know the new instructor down there with what he's doing, and the class is growing.
Yeah.
That's just all good stuff to hear. We've talked about it for years, just with the opportunities that are out there for students to get into this our industry, because there's so much. It's not what it that stigma of just thinking it's a backup. This is what there is. If you're not good at anything else as far as education, which isn't true. How much education do we need with, like you just mentioned, the technical end of it, of programs that are out there now? I mean, it's grown so much of where you can go with it. But it was just great to see that the vocational school, the technical school at BOCES, has the demand that it has now, and that just means that there could be more coming in, especially coming to you.
Yeah, and I mean, I think with the BOCES, when you and I were in school, I know when I was in school, it was a stigma, like you said, and I really think it started with standardized testing, and they had quotas they had to fit, and there was a lot of kids that had ADD or ADHD, and they were considered the bad kids or the dumb kids because they didn't learn the same way as others. And I was like that. Like I was a fairly intelligent kid, I think, but I could not learn that way. Like I couldn't learn that stuff, and my mind just didn't work that way. And I think I'm just undiagnosed. And my daughter, who's she'll be 10, she'll be 10 in a few days. She's diagnosed with ADD, and I was totally against putting her on medicine. I fought it for a while. I told her she's got to get out there and run around more and all like that. And I don't want to get off topic.
Mm-hmm.
But we put her on a little bit of medicine, and we really track it and watch it closely. And in the past year since she's been on it, she is night and day. It's funny because we put her on it when she was in third grade, and I actually failed third grade. And I think back, and the stuff that she has troubles, the same exact things that I had troubles with. And it was just that I just wasn't learning the same way. I couldn't learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think back, it's like, man, what if I would have grew up now, like I might not have been an electrician. Maybe I would, because the stigma's not there to go to BOCES. But they used to stick to kids, that the teachers couldn't handle, send them off to BOCES, get rid of them. And then now they got a whole bunch of kids that are, they can't sit still. They're jumping around. They're in the BOCES program. They're undiagnosed with this ADD. So then they get out there, they start having alcohol problems and drug problems. Now we got a field full of trades. And then it started being all the bad. And then the stigma just multiplied, and it just grew and grew, I think, for 2 decades at least. But I think in the last 5 years that mind shift is starting to come around, and the need for it's really driving it, because there was some time there where we couldn't find any kids that wanted to do anything. Mm-hmm. You brought up the hiring people from the restaurant industry. Those are some of the best people I found, because they have to deal with a lot of the public and the public negative stuff, dealing with unhappy customers. And for a while, that was the only place I was looking to try to find people. But now there are some good people, because that stigma, I believe, and I hope and I pray that it's changed.
Yeah, I agree. And just seeing, Shayna going through high school, a lot of the way things are set up, it's a way, it's like so broad or cookie cutter, to where not every kid, as we know, even when we were in school, our parents were in school, just doesn't learn the same. And that part I'm disappointed in, because whether it's hands-on, and I know it's a whole nother topic and struggle to try to change something that's been set in its ways for so long. And granted, there's good things that come out of it. There's some classes that she takes, depending on the teacher, that she locks right in and learns and gets engaged. So that has a lot to do with it. But my kids are the same way. It's hands-on. It's seeing it. You go on a field trip. You're in the atmosphere. So to try to harness all that, they end up really thriving after high school, similar probably to like you did. And you're stumbling along the way based on whether it's attention deficit disorder, which in itself, if you just get the focus, and it's even for adults, right? We just have a hard time focusing sometimes if you're in certain situations. And there's this one guy I listened to a podcast, Andrew Huberman. He talks about it. And there's the prescriptions and monitored doses that can just take all that racing thoughts or whatever it is, those distractions, and kind of hone them in. There's different. There was actually a scientist that he worked with. It was interesting, that would chew Nicorette gum, so the nicotine helped him to focus, and he needed it. So everyone had their own little tricks of what they used just to be able to harness that. But, that just comes into play, because we just see people that come into the trades, and now that they're hands-on and their focus goes to that interest, and they're working on site, they're working with their hands, they're creating something, they're able to see what they did. It's a game changer from just going by the books. And that's the biggest trouble I had, is when you're reading through, and I still have that challenge. I mean, I was just working on this different kind of shower system that you have to put together with these composite walls. Reading through it, of course, after doing it for so many years, I understand it. But until I start taking the pieces out, and then that's where I connect the dots. So that's where someone that has that mindset could really thrive in the trades more so, because they think that it's an educational thing or an intellect thing, but it's not. It's just how they learn and how they can put things together. And it's such a value. And I hate that stigma, to where it's like, no, it's either education or the trades. And it's like, as you know, and just you perfectly as an example, the intelligence, you need it. You need it to do what you do with the electrical. You need it to run a business. With all these things that are flying at you, you better have, a good intellect to be able to handle all this. It's not just because you were good at the trades. It's because you had the intellect to be able to do it and then thrive and take it from there. So that is, again, we've talked about it over the years, is just something that and another reason for doing this podcast is having success stories like yourself on to show that you can start like you did in an interest, learning the trade, and then you go out and you start your own business. 16 years later, you're growing, and you can just keep going from here.
One thing's for sure: if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, you got the drive, and with that, what's in store? What do you see? I know it's all new, and like you said, just when we started talking, but where's your direction? Where's your focus right now with the company? Just to get it landed with home services.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make it all encompassing. I don't want, I don't want to have 5 different companies in my house. I want I want a organized company that I trust, that I know that, they're not going to disappear. We're working on 2 different jobs right now where, they happen to be women both time. One great grandmother that, she gave a deposit of like $9,000 to this kid. He was supposed to do, replace the heating system, put a generator in, but just disappeared totally, just nowhere to be found. And then we're working with another company, a woman, husband and wife, generator. They gave a deposit on a generator, and that guy, he ended up in jail. He just disappeared. And, there's that, and you guys do a really good job putting on the presentations to teach people what to look for in contracts. And because people don't know, I mean, we have people that pay us to come change light bulbs because they just have no idea, and they wouldn't know what a good job was or a bad job, or they wouldn't know what they should expect because maybe they did just live in a apartment down in a city. So my vision is just, we want to be somebody you can trust, somebody you could be one call, stop, knowing it's going to get done right. It's not going to be probably the cheapest, but there's going to be follow through. If something goes wrong with it tomorrow, or if something goes wrong with it next month or next year or a decade from now, maybe that's not me, maybe that's Sarah, maybe that's Henry, maybe it's somebody else, but there's going to be somebody there. And if you have a problem with your, one thing we're looking at is some water filtration stuff. We're in a lot of houses, and it started with my house. I needed some water filtration, and a company put in a water filtration system, but then they weren't there. I was always looking for UV lights and the right filters and stuff like that. Why shouldn't that person just every year say, either send me an email or, hey, we got filters, you want to send them to you? Just make it easy for people. I mean, that's what people want. People don't want to have to deal with the stuff of their home. They want to deal with the stuff they want to deal with, their families and their hobbies and their, whatever else it is. So the vision is just keep on growing the services we offer, and, continue with our core values and finding other good partners like you guys, and just homeowners that, just are looking for somebody they can trust and reliable, and, a place that, if they have an issue, they can come and, see what we have to offer. And if they have questions, they ask them, and just keep on growing and doing the right thing. Like Grandma said, God willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll be here.
Yeah, you'll be here. And like I said, just with the drive you have and how consistent you've been, and you've always want to get better. And is that part of, because there was the training you were going to start doing? So you're training new employees coming in, or just the training of things that are evolving, or both?
Yeah, so I mean, that's something I'm super excited about. We have this program. It's a different program, I think, than you guys use, but it's a similar model. There's online training. There's portals. Each of my techs have a login, and there's stuff for HVAC. There's stuff for electrical. There's stuff they have access to plumbing if they wanted to learn some stuff there. But you can just find paths, and you earn points, and there's a little bit of like, I'll text everybody on Monday, Roman has the highest number this month or this week, and overall Christian has the highest numbers, and we're all just learning on the platform together. We have weekly meetings. We've had them for the past, since COVID. We just, every Wednesday morning we get together, and we just, something we learned, hey, we were working on this, and hey, Bob forgot to do this thing, and it's like, somebody forgetting something and making a mistake, that's not great. But if they learn from it, that's good. But if they bring that back and everybody learns from it, that's great. And that's key. So those company meetings that we have to bring something to and talk about. And I do PowerPoint presentations sometimes. In our new facility now, we're going to build out a house, kind of like they have a BOCES, so we can show green kids, hey, this is how you drill holes. This is why you drill a hole. This is what you do. This is what a riser is through the roof. That's SEU, that's SER, the different types of materials. One of the new guys that came to work for me, I mean, that was something it was just eye opening to me, and you forget it, you see past it. He was like, is there any way that we could get a list of what the materials we use are? I was like, man, why wouldn't I have that? Why wouldn't I just have a board that shows 12-2 Romex, 14-2 Romex, 14-3 MC, EMT, different sizes? Because, you come into the trade and there's a million different things, and just being able to recognize the material, I mean, that's step one. So this software we have has a modular that's just recognized, first it's all safety stuff, obviously, it goes through all the safety stuff, and I think you can get your OSHA certifications on there, but then it's electrical material identification, and you have a test on it and you get points on that. So it's just really exciting stuff. And that's what I love. My favorite thing is to teach everybody, getting everybody on the same page, encouraging the senior people to be teaching the junior people, and encouraging the junior people to ask questions that, we probably all have questions on, or if, he has a question, somebody else does. So I just really have a passion and a drive for that I really love.
Yeah. And the training in itself with doing it, and you would agree that you end up, the information, but it sharpens, after all these years you're doing it, it sharpens what you're doing, because then you have to think about it. Like you said, not that you take it for granted, but you just have all that stored up in your head. And then when you try to explain it to someone, different ideas pop off, and it's like, oh, this is how I can convey this easier than maybe it was to me. So you can fast track and train your employees to get to where they need to be faster. And of course that helps out the company as a whole, because then you're scaling better. You're scaling, and you're not like we used to. We used to have, it was kind of learning by osmosis. They'd come on the job with me many years ago, and they're shadowing you, and you let them try a few things, and it's just not as efficient, not as productive. Now, with whether it's weekly meetings or the same thing, just coming down to the shop, going through some exercises, it's made us a better company. And I'm sure you would agree, because now you can archive these training programs. You don't have to go through it again of, okay, who am I going to send this new hire out with based on what job they're going to go to, and get the other seasoned employee that just may not make that connection. So it is just with your company. We know the brothers that just do gutters and their training center, where they've come. That's what we need, and I'll complain about, and you'll have that. Everyone always echoing, saying, "Oh, the trades, the skills gap." Well, it's doing exactly what you're doing with having the in-house training, the training program, the apprentice program, with us doing it on our end with remodeling, and the other companies we work with. That's what's going to move the needle for us that we need. And if other companies are going to follow, because they're going to have to, because the ones that don't, that's just the way things are going, just with technology, with being able to do things in-house and get the benefit from it. that's what's exciting, and I just think that's awesome. That's why I wanted to touch base with you, have you on here, get more info about how you're shifting and changing and growing. We're creeping up on the hour mark. We've covered a lot. I know we could always cover more, but I want to have, at some point I can have you back on as you're growing and get more updates to see what else you're taking on.
I love it. I appreciate it. Any chance I get to talk to Mike Whalen, that's a good day.
No, I appreciate it, man. And I don't get to see you as much. I mean, I know you're doing a job for us. It's not my job. It's out, I think it's in Highland for Jeff. They're doing the foundation right now. You guys will be over there. It's a good sized job. I had a couple of you guys out on a bathroom I did, but I don't run into you or Ron or Brad anymore. It's the way it goes because you grow. It's the same on our end. Now we have about 23 at DBS, and I don't see Shane as much anymore. I don't see Junior as much anymore. It's just at the meetings I'll see him. I'll see you. Like to. We make it a point to get together as much as we can. But it's not as much as it used to be. But that's all part of growing. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, and we'll, like I said, we'll check back in at some point soon.
Sounds good, Mike. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, thanks, Dave.